Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Strategoi video. It's fitting that I'm recording this intro here while I'm actually back in the States for a bit on vacation because this interview that I conducted with Nick right before I left for vacation in the States. It covers Nick's experience at AoS Worlds, and us being the two Americans on the channel, I figured it was appropriate, that we send it out from America itself for, kind of a rare occasion. I think I've done one or two videos that were officially recorded or at least published while I was in the States, but mostly that's coming from the Netherlands. So anyway, as you see in this photo here, even though Jonas isn't joining us for this interview, the Table Talk series really isn't the same without him. And even though I didn't actually plan this when I picked this lovely picture of the three of us, this was actually the day that we decided as a group to start doing Table Talks. So I guess it actually is pretty fitting that we're here and Jonas is in the picture. But obviously that's Nick on the left there, and that's me looking goofy as always on the right. So the basic gist of the video today is just, and we'll say this in the interview, but essentially we never really got Nick's full take, even though he was part of the Team the Netherlands discussion, the debrief that we had. So anyway, this is more of a get to know Nick talk than Worlds. I think we only talked about Worlds for about a third of it, but it was still a lovely conversation actually. So thanks for checking in, guys. As always, keep hitting that like button and subscribe and all of the good stuff. We hit 2,000 subscribers not too long ago, so it's been pretty awesome and looking to grow the channel even more. So thanks for your support up to that point. Without further ado, here's the video. And here we are. So, Nick, what's going on, man?
Yes.
You're here.
Not too much. Yes, I'm here. Good to see you again after a long night.
Yeah. Okay. We played a game last night with my current version of KO versus Nick's current version of OBR. So it was actually way closer than I thought it was going to be, but Nick had to talk me off a ledge at the end there, getting pretty salty. So
yes,
yeah.
it's fun. The desalinization, I think you called it.
Yeah, I tried to pre-desalinize the experience because I knew I was going in for a tough fight. Nick, I really do think your OBR, as it stands right now, is in one of the best places of the books that are out there, or the lists that are out there. I think you're in a really good place to, especially for a teams format, if you compare into certain things too.
Yeah, it's fucking bananas right now. So the that's definitely what I'm playing for, is like a teams pairing. So yeah, we'll get into the list a little bit. Like, it's just the traditional, which is like the Immortus Guard and the Cabalus and big Catacross. But it's just so fucking tanky, man. So it's just a great anvil to have in your arsenal or your roster to just be like, yeah, okay, here's your 20-0 and stop. It's been a lot of fun doing that. So
right.
Yeah, it was a very close game. We I think it was minor victory at the end, right?
Yeah, officially was a minor victory. Yeah.
Yeah.
Same points, but then I lost 2 battle tactics. So yeah.
Yes.
So, I mean, obviously the nature of the chat today is not about your future world's potential. Well, I mean, it could be. So we could talk about that a little bit at the end, but is trying to put kind of a bow on your world's experience. I feel like it's been kind of weird that like the world's coverage led so much. We had so much talk about you leading into Worlds, and then Jonas and I had a table talk where it was supposed to be the three of us, but it ended up being just me and Jonas, where I basically talked about my experience. And then we had Team Serbia on, and the judges before that, actually, and then the Dutch team. And then I'm going to have a coach interview with Dawa eventually. That still hasn't happened yet, but we'll get it together once our schedules get aligned. But here we are. We've been talking about it. And then the weird thing is you've already talked a good bit about your World's experience, kind of like here and there, or, we can kind of piece things together. So today will be more, I think, of a loose form, just friendly chat. And you can kind of like throw in whatever you feel like talking about with regards to Worlds. That you feel like would round out the story on your end. But I felt like weird, like you're basically the third host of the channel, and you not getting to, I mean, you did way better at Worlds than I did, so.
It's the running gag, we just cut me off.
Right, yeah, well, yeah. Okay, but so what else is going on in your life? This is a good opportunity, I think, with this video for us to talk about you as a person too. Like
Oh,
we because we don't. I don't know if everyone at home knows that much about you, other than you're the charismatic, likable other American guy on the channel.
okay.
Yeah. What's the? Do you want to tell people a little bit about your story, where you grew up, how you ended up in the Netherlands, what you do for work, any of that stuff?
Yeah, sure. So, I'm originally from California, Southern California, not that weird Northern Californian part. So I was more in the Inland Empire, which is like where we call it P-Town, Pomona. And so I lived there for the majority of my youth, and then I moved down to San Diego, where I went to UCSD for school to study microbiology. And so stayed there for a while, and then eventually, it was time to graduate, find a job. Had no idea what I wanted to do, but had a similar idea. My parents were always like, "Get a job, kid." And where are you gonna? What do you want to do? And what are you gonna do with microbiology? And I remember like the come to Jesus moment where I was like, I'm not smart enough to like come up with these scientific questions of like what is why does this work this way? Why does it connect cookie people? And I'm like, I got no idea. I don't know how to do that. But what I'm really good at is someone giving me instructions and repeating that in like, a lab setting. And I was like, I would love to do that if that just exists. And then, some guy was like, "Hey, idiot, that's biotech." And I'm like, "Oh, awesome." So then I fell into biotech, which I started like as a cleaner. I was scrubbing walls and ceilings, like decontaminating clean rooms. And then eventually, an old Japanese man named Masao, who was terribly afraid of lizards. Um, yeah, we used to get lizards because we were in like the valley, and it was just like he would go, "Oh!" And when a lizard would crawl by, and I'd have to like scoop the lizard and get it out of the lab. Super clean room, but it was for therapeutics. And he tested me one day, and he was like, "I want you to, inoculate these samples, and if you can do it without contamination, that'll be cool." And so I did it. I didn't contaminate anything, and he was like, "Oh," and then so like he made me help him, and that really introduced me to the whole world of biotech, which I fell in love with. And then over time, I had to move to back to LA. Uh, for work, and so I worked at a different biotech company where we were actually doing what's called CAR T cell therapy. So it's chimeric antigen receptor therapy, and it's treating cancer patients for different blood cancers. So I was working in the labs doing that, genetically modifying cells and all that kind of bullshit. And so that company expanded and opened a site in the Netherlands, for which I volunteered to go help start up their manufacturing plant. So I moved to the Netherlands in 2018 with my wife, who was also working at the same company in LA. And so we came here, we started up the site, doing all that, and then so that's kind of what I do now. Is I just hop around a little bit, and I start up cell therapy manufacturing plants. Um, and yeah, that pays for Warhammer. So yay.
I don't know if I mean I've heard many stories about work related things with you, but I don't know if I've heard this version in a nutshell kind of story. So that's nice for me to hear too.
Yeah.
Something that like occurred to me was how smart you are, and you don't present yourself as the smart guy in the room. Like
I'm not. I fake it till you make it.
yeah, I don't. But see, I don't believe that. I don't believe that from all this,
Yeah.
and it gets me thinking. Like, I feel like so. For those that don't know, I was previously, even though I'm kind of in a like stage of my life right now with regards to career, I was formerly a musician, and one of the things you often notice, especially with classical musicians, is that there's a strong correlation between classical musicians and intelligence and a certain kinds of intelligence. Obviously, not every kind of intelligence, but um, I have hearing you talk about this makes me think that there probably is something similar with people who play Warhammer, at least on a serious level,
Mm.
in this kind of competitive world, and then having even if you like, I would say you don't present your intelligence as your front facing part of your personality. I think you're like people managing skills and kind of your like gregariousness and how fun you are to be around.
Gregarious.
Yeah.
Stop with the SAT words, man.
I feel like these things are the things that you people first would pick up on you. But like do you see this correlation? Like thinking back to the seriously committed Warhammer players, you know. I mean, Jeffrey's smart too. Like he did kickboxing, but like he's really into the data stuff. I don't know too much about what he
Yeah.
does for work, but he is a smart guy. And I think a lot of the people, Jonas is totally like very smart. Most of the guys that we talk to in this field, Mitchell de Boer is working on his master's, our doctorate right now. I can't
Mhm.
remember. There are a number of guys when I had the judges on. Specifically, I know Tom, the judge, was he's an econometrician in the same field that like I'm from. This is a kind of a running story. Lex super smart, I think. A lot of these guys super smart. I'm probably leaving
Yeah.
off a bunch of obvious choices here.
Yeah, no, I think what happens a lot when I'm playing is when we start to get beyond the game and like, oh, who are you? What do you do? I find myself running into a lot of like, oh, I run my own company, I run
Yeah,
this, I'm leading teams and do, all sorts of fun stuff. To your point, yeah, all those people you listed, like Jeff, me and him have like managerial conversations all the time, like giving advice back and forth of how do you motivate people and do that. And I think there's an aspect of that in Warhammer where it forces you to apply outside skills, let's call it. So the big one, obvious one, is strategy. So are you a strategic thinker in general? So you have to think about turns in advance. You have to anticipate your opponent's move, and so very much like chess with a lot of extra shit in there. And chess is historically shown as an indicator of high intelligence, right? But the principle behind it again is planning out moves, knowing in advance, and being very crafty and this sort of thing. So I think there's correlation there with Warhammer. I think the other really big aspect that maybe other avenues of this don't require, that Warhammer does, is interpersonal skills. So we've all had those games where you're like, what is this guy?
yeah,
Or gal, whatever. What's going on with this person? And then there's a level of that where you see at least, and bringing it back to Worlds, is that like there was a lot of empathy going on in the game of understanding your opponent, trying to do these things. People are being very strict, like you have to follow the rules, you have to do all this, that's fine, but there's a level of connection there that like people management of keeping the peace, making sure everybody's very clear on my intentions, you understand the message that's being sent is the same as the message being received. So communication is a very strong aspect of this game. Collaboration, I think, is also a big one, because especially when language is a barrier, you work together to find the solution of being able to play this fucking game. So I think a lot of I think you're right. I think there's a lot of that that prove to make some of these higher end players very successful, because they already employ these skills in their day-to-day life, and they can apply them as they see fit.
yeah, yeah. I definitely agree that a game. I talk a lot about having to stand across from someone for 3.5 hours, and how important it is that you get through that time in a positive way, right?
Yeah.
So like even talking like going back to our game last night and this like you don't we as people I think are aware, you and I have never played at a tournament despite the fact we played 26 some odd games, 27 games I think now, something in the neighborhood
Mhm.
of. And by the way, you have the winning record by 2 games. You're
Ooh.
2 games up on me.
Bringing this franchise around.
Yeah, yeah. But one thing I think you probably don't get to see as much is that I get way less salty in tournaments than I do when I'm with my friends. And
Okay.
and I think one of the things that happens is I know that in that moment there are bigger priorities than how I feel. Like
Mm.
the experience of the other person across. It's kind of like when you're with your girlfriend or partner or whoever, you start to eventually start complaining more to them the longer you're with them because you feel like
Sure.
they're a safe person to complain to, right? And I think
Yeah.
over time that ends up having a double-edged sword quality is that you're not leaning into maybe the best version of yourself every time you're with someone that you trust and you know you're not going to lose their friendship or you're gonna whatever that they you know that they have a higher threshold for your saltiness in this case. So like
Sure.
I like I when I go into like tournament type games, especially with someone I don't know, I try to stay as positive as I possibly can, even if I'm losing. I take losses pretty decently at tournaments. For some reason,
Yeah.
it's losses at home I take a lot harder.
Sure.
I don't know why. I don't know what that is. Do you experience this at all, like in your kind of games?
I'm the opposite actually. I take losses at home a lot less than I do losses at a tournament.
Hmm.
So, I like how you're saying with the security or the safety of being able to complain or bitch and do your own thing. I think that's what you've earned in, like, making a friend and playing with your friend and being regular. It's like, yeah, you earn that right to just be yourself. Whereas if I bring it back to what we were just talking about, these tournaments are work, so to speak. I'm in a meeting for 3 hours with this person. I need to put on my best behavior, and I have to put energy into keeping the peace and doing all this. Whereas if you and I are playing, I'm like, fuck that and fuck your roles, buddy. I don't have to do anything like that. I can just have fun, and like I'm allowed to be upset because I rolled like shit all day. I mean, you know what? Fuck this game and flip the table over, whatever. And we're still gonna go and hang out after, and then you can laugh at me the next time, like, you were kind of a dick. And I'm like, yeah, you're right, I was. And then it's just fun. Whereas these other impressions are lasting because this person has no idea who I am, and they're gonna walk away and be like, that guy sucks. And that, carries with people because I'm not gonna play them again potentially for like a year if I see them again in Worlds or something like that. And then, reputations can spread, that sort of thing. So for me, I try to put more emphasis into putting on my best behavior. And when I lose in those games, I'm more upset about like losing because I'm putting all I've got on the table, and it's not as relaxed as it is with the other ones because at home, I don't really care win, lose. I'm just trying to learn something or maybe just trying to have some fun. So it doesn't really matter to me as much as it does in the other setting.
See, the interesting thing is most of your wind up into the punchline there was exactly the same way I am. I feel like because of, this, they don't know you. You should be on your best behavior and blah blah blah. Like, so I'm with you all the way up to the point of like
Yeah.
the very end there, where you turn it into we both have a different psychological relationship.
Yeah.
Do you feel like holding back? I don't feel like it's holding back. So maybe to give another perspective, and we can talk a little bit about my past work experience implicitly by doing this. I used to teach kids, and if I was having a shitty day and I went to go teach students that were kids. Now, I had some adult students, but if I was teaching kids, most kids don't understand if you're in a bad headspace, that bad headspace has nothing to do with them.
Right.
And so I saw it, even if like the adult that I would have been teaching a lesson to instead was close enough with me that I could bitch and say, oh, my girlfriend and I are going through a thing, or I just had her shit day, or whatever. I felt like I could never bring that to the kids, and all it took was about 10, 15 minutes of being with the kid for me to flip that day around, because I had to figure out a way to lean into the better version of myself. I didn't see it as putting on a different face. I saw it as stop being so down on yourself, and this gave me an excuse to be the best version of myself. So, and that's my kind of psychological relationship with it, I guess. When I go to these tournaments, I'm just here to have a good time. Of course I want to win. I want to win more than I do at home. But at the end of the day, I'd rather lean into... I see it as a vehicle for leaning into the best version of myself. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Maybe I explained it in a confusing way. So I think in terms of like behavior, my behavior at a tournament is always like more energy, more effort into being like the best version of it, right? But the loss means way more to me at a tournament than it does when I'm playing with a friend. So like I have more fun, like my energy level is higher, like I'm enjoying myself when I can just be the natural version of myself, of just like going with the tide, like this is fun. It doesn't matter if I win, lose, I don't care. I'm just here for the funsies of it. But at a tournament, it's more draining and it's more taxing because I have to put energy into making sure that everybody's happy, everybody's blah blah blah, and then I get more upset internally when I lose those games. One, because I'm trying to win, and then two, it's like, oh, I put all this shit energy in and I didn't even win. God damn it.
See, that's what I'm saying. I think we have two totally different fundamental, like, not first principles, but that the equivalent of like your subconscious like way of relating to the game.
Well, I think this is also you're more of an extrovert than I am an introvert. So for you, the social aspect of it is more fun for you, where for me, it's not. It's work.
Sure.
So yeah.
But when you're playing against friends at a tournament, how is that?
Then it's kind of the same. So in terms of like the fun side of it, because then again, I can be myself. I can be relaxed. I don't have to do all this. And then I don't need to worry too much about communication. So like, for example, when I play you pretty much know where I'm at when we're playing. And like, I don't have to, when we play by intent, it's a lot easier because you already know where I'm going. We've played a lot. You know how I talk, you know how my mannerisms, you know, all my shit. Whereas I have to like quadruple that with someone who's never met me before.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, thinking about it also, maybe this is a different, where my, not priorities lie, but like my fundamental thinking at a tournament is you say you're more upset if you lose because obviously you want to win, and I think that's a very
Yeah.
logical mindset. I think the reason why I'm more okay with losing at a tournament than at home is because more often than not, I play more competitive people at tournaments than I do at home, and I
Mm,
expect to win at home.
okay.
But when I'm at a tournament, I go in like, hey, if I'm playing well at a tournament, I should be getting matched up with someone that's at my level,
Sure.
especially towards the end. And then who knows? Like Worlds, I was like, what? Like I'm just happy to play my very best game, you know. So
Yeah.
if I was on the top tables and then I lost, I think that
Yeah.
that would be a different thing. And to be fair, you're more often on higher end tables than I am. So there's that. But there's more on the
Yeah.
line.
No, sure. I get where you're coming from. I feel you.
Yeah. Do you get that feeling that I mean I sometimes I feel like the games that you play outside of tournaments are intentionally playing against tournament players more often than not. Like I have a number of friends that are way more casual, and I think you only have a couple that I can think of that are your kind of casual mutual friends
Well,
of mine.
so I think that statement has to be changed before. You have a lot more friends than I do.
Stop.
So no, but my point is again, it goes back to that extrovert and introvert. Like you get out there, you play a lot more games and all this, whereas I don't. Um, Going back to when we first met, like you forced the issue, if you call it like that, is that like I don't text, I don't follow up. Like I'm not good at that until I get to a really comfortable state. That's one of the things that I have to actively work on in my own like personal growth, is branching out because my natural behavior is to just go, well, I'll never see those people again, and I just move on with my life. I've got like 5 that I regularly talk to.
Yeah.
So when you're in that circle, that's my natural inclination. It's like I'll text them to play. If Ryan's not going to play, I've got like 3 backups or 3 other options that I can play. I can play, over here, over here, and over here. If none of those are available, then I'm like, well, I guess I'm not playing. But that just kind of works out that those people that I'm rolling with are the more competitive players. So that just kind of works out that way.
Okay. Fair enough. You have picked up a lot more TTS. I don't play
Yeah.
any TTS, and you play, I'm pretty sure. Correct me if I'm wrong, but all of your TTS is against Worlds people.
Yeah, so we have our group that's the tryouts for the world's team. So I just throw a thing in there in the WhatsApp of trying to get a game, and that's also me trying to step out of my comfort zone because again, even behind a computer screen, I have to talk to them, which again is not natural for me. So that's it's a challenge, which I'm super thankful for Warhammer that facilitates that need, or else I didn't really have an avenue to do these sorts of things. So it's not that I don't want to play with people; it's just not in my nature, or meet new people. That sort of. It really takes me a while to get going and get comfortable to kind of branch out.
Right. Okay, well, I think this is actually a lovely, like, we were talking beforehand about strategy of working through a conversation and an interview. I'm always looking to be better at this. So for those of you out there that get frustrated with my interview style, I am trying to change it around a bit. But anyway, this was
Mhm.
actually an organic diversion that we probably would have never come to if we hadn't just randomly gone with that. Um,
Success.
there we go. Now, of course, you and I talk very naturally anyway.
Sure.
For those that don't know, we often are in the car together writing to tournaments, and Nick and I talk a lot. In fact, most of our hangout time in the last however long has been not playing games together, but writing in between tournaments. You often
Hmm.
drive me to and from, and we get a lot of decompression time to do that, which I very much
Yeah.
value. Okay, so sometimes we do like an ask me anything kind of thing. So I hadn't prepared for this at all, but I figured I'm just going to throw some random stuff at you.
Sure.
Okay.
Hit me.
Nick, what are your top 3 favorite movies of all time?
Ooh. Okay. Number one is always Gladiator. It was the first R-rated movie I ever saw as a kid, and I'll never forget it because I was such a pussy about it. I don't know, maybe like 8 years old, and I was with my older brother, and we were with my mom, and we went to a friend's house, her friend's house, and then her friend had some younger kids as well, and the guy he was maybe like 13, 14. He's like, "You guys ever see Gladiator?" And my brother, trying to be cool, he was like, "No, no, never. We should watch it." And then I pipe up and I go, "What's it rated?" And then they're like, "It's rated R." I was like, "No, we can't watch that. We're not allowed." And then my brother's like, "Oh, it's fine. It's fine. Don't worry about it." And then the guy was like, "Well, I'll be sure to fast forward all the bloody bits." And I was like, oh, okay, okay. And so we start watching the movie, and this guy proceeds to slow-mo all the bloody bits, like as they're cutting people in
Wow.
half. So it's like cut screen of all the blood spurting out and all that. And so never forget it. And then even my brother was like, he told me like years later, he was like, dude, I was like, I think I'm gonna be sick. Like he couldn't handle it either.
How old are you?
Oh, I was super young, maybe like 8 or something.
Okay.
Like, yeah.
Okay, wait.
So
So Gladiator, is that like
that's number one
are you
forever.
are you psyched about the new Napoleon
No,
movie? Okay, so
no.
because I see this as almost like a spiritual successor in the sense that he's kind of playing a similar role and blah blah blah.
I
Okay.
don't like it. Just leave it alone. Get new IP. Get creative. Stop trying to give me member berries. It's just I need Maximus to be dead in the Colosseum. Just leave him alone.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Let that memory lie. Okay, so that one I think is like one of my that's my number one. I can watch it all day, every day. It doesn't matter. I think in terms of the amount of times I've watched it, I'm just gonna put this one in there is the original Jurassic Park.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I can't get enough of it. Like I just watch it. That score is unbelievable, and then it's just Jeff Goldblum at his finest. Like it's just chaos theory. It's great. Everything about it spared no expense. It was lovely. And then the third one. Let's get a wild card in here. Let's see, all time based on what I could watch. Yeah, I think I'm probably gonna have to go with my heart wants to just say Saving Private Ryan just because the sheer amount of times that I've watched it, but my brain is saying think of a good Quentin Tarantino movie because they're all. But the thing that's a challenge with that is like you can't watch those all the time. It doesn't have as much rewatchability. Like you always want to watch up to a point. Like I watch Pulp Fiction up to the Marcellus Wallace butt fucking, and then I'm like, all right, good, and then that's about it. And then it's like, yeah, all right. But yeah, I think I'll go with those three. Very classic, very man movies. Yeah, I'll stick with that.
Yeah, that seems about right. You have very strong opinions of movies in general, so
I do.
Yeah,
I'm a
yeah.
very
We talk
big,
about this a good bit.
Film fan. Yeah.
So okay, this is a bit of like a job interview question, but it's not meant as a job interview question. I don't want like don't answer it in like a professional setting.
Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but you're either 30 or 31. I forget exactly where you sit right now. What?
I think I'm 31.
Okay, you're 31.
I think that's where I'm at. Yeah.
All right.
I always need like my buffers. Like I ask my wife how old she is, and then I back calculate how old I am.
Right. I'm literally tomorrow turning 42. So I'm a whole. Your birthday's in December, so I'm a whole almost 10 plus years older than you, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Ish. So anyway, where do you see yourself when you're my age?
Yeah. So it's a bit unclear. So when we moved here, my wife and I, we always said that we would stay here for as long as it makes business sense. Most people say like financial sense and all that. For us, we were doing things for like career moves and like making something a splash to like jump ahead in terms of development and such like that. So in 10 years time, I'm not sure where I'll be in terms of my career, but I'll be following that because that's kind of what gives me a lot of energy and that sort of thing. So I really don't know where that's looking like. My hope is that I'm that much closer to my end state of like job-wise is like doing consulting work. I want to live in the middle of fucking nowhere where I don't have neighbors. It's just kind of that and that sort of thing. So the Netherlands has good options for that if that's still where we end up. But yeah, just kind of I want to keep the dream that we have alive. So there's always the next challenge that we're working on. We're enjoying our travels. That's been the best thing about moving to Europe is the amount of holiday time you get. And still, still feeling value from the day at the end of it. So, there was purpose behind what we did. So it was like, yeah, I think chasing happiness is misleading because that can lead you to other things where there's highs and lows. I think satisfaction is where I want to chase. I want to chase that at the end of the day, I can, look in the mirror and be like, yeah, I'm good with that.
Yeah. Yeah, the idea of you moving, which is like ostensibly always on the table with this, is already making me sad. But anyway, that's a good sign.
Well, so I think it's unlikely because my wife is the exact opposite when we talk about introvert extrovert, as you know. She's set down some hard roots, which would be very hard to rip any of that up. Just as like I have with the few that I have, they're very strong. So that's like when I get job opportunities, like we would like you to come lead this. I'm like, no. It doesn't outweigh what I already have. Sure. I've got a lot of good stuff going on. So it just, following that stuff. So then when I look at the end of it, I've got like, I've got this going on, this. I'm very satisfied with what my life is today. And we just keep going with that.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe pushing even more philosophical because we can. Yes. What gets you up out of bed every day?
Legacy.
Okay. Go for it.
So I actually, this was not to put it into work, but this was actually, we did a workshop with all of our leadership team. And that was one of the questions was what gets you out of bed? And then so upon like really reflecting, what I found my driver is legacy in and of itself. So leaving my name on as much as possible, leaving a footprint that's lasting or makes a difference. And I think that also, I didn't know that about myself until I really like took the time to figure it out. But I do think that has always been there subliminally. And that also put me into the career path that I went. So working with cancer patients, and like my mother passed away from cancer. So again, it's another motivator. My wife's father passed away from cancer that we actually treat ish. So a lot of these things I think guided us to where we're at now. And so it was one of the more surreal moments of my life back when I was in LA. I actually met the guy that I worked on for kids. So he had about 2 weeks left to live. We gave him our therapy, and I don't know where he's at now, but he was perfectly healthy, alive, all that kind of stuff. And I shook his hand. Like I went up and met him, and I didn't tell him who I was, but it was just like really one of those moments where I was like shaking. I was like, I cannot believe like the impact that the fulfillment that you get from your work that you do. So I think all of that is like whether that person knows my name or not. And I guess this can almost come off a little selfish, but it's that fulfillment part. It's like whether that person knows my name or not, I made a difference in that person's life, and I know that. So for me, that's satisfying my drive of getting out of the bed. It's like I'm leaving this world a better place, or at least I'm trying to, than the way I found it.
That's really nice. Yeah, I can imagine that being really emotional. I don't think of you as the kind of guy that tears up quickly, but I could imagine that there's. No,
that was one of those moments where I was tearing up when he walked on stage and they told me who he was. He was like, I'm your first commercial patient. So that's when I was like, holy fuck, I worked on this guy, and then I started to get like really emotional. Yeah,
sure. And I've mentioned this in other times we've talked, but I actually see you as a very emotionally available person. I think your front facing part is more this kind of, for lack of a better term, kind of bro from school who makes a lot of jokes. But I was shocked the first time you kind of gave me relationship advice a while ago, actually. It was before I met Elka. I was just like, who is this guy? Where did this come from? This guy's super, and you're like super intuitive with kind of like being in touch with talking to people and kind of steering them in the right way. Could be also steering them in the wrong way if you don't like them. but no, you're a very emotional. Like Jonas is also, he talked about this too in one of our table talks. The time that you sat down and talked to him when we were all chatting about something. So anyway, I very much value that about you. Okay, so this is kind of the get to know Nick show, I guess. So maybe we'll reframe this. Okay, so let's actually get to the main topic of talking about Worlds.
Okay.
So we've talked about Worlds to death. I mean, let's just recap what has been said about Worlds. Jonas and I had a pre-Worlds table talk. We had a post-World table talk. We had obviously 2 interviews pre and post with the 2 teams we've talked to, the Netherlands and Serbia. We've had a judges interview there was some amount of it with the last time you and I got on a tournament review with Tom, talking about the Dutch Masters, kind of talking about TOing for Worlds, kind of leading into that and what that's like. So we have spent quite a bit of time talking about this. You and I kind of before this decided we were going to steer away from like covering all the super obvious stuff, but I'm just going to put some basics down of what just setting the table, and then we can take it in any direction you like. Um, Obviously, you did not play singles. You did play teams for the Netherlands. You guys took 18th place out of 24. Your total record was what was it? 2-4?
3-2-1. I
Three.
think. So
You
I
won
three,
3
tied 1,
and lost 2.
yeah, that's 6, right?
Yeah.
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 And the teams that you guys played in order were Norway, Spain on day 1, Finland, Germany day 2, and Switzerland, Wales on day 3. You played a total of 2 Fire Slayers lists, 2 Lumineth lists, and then Khorne and Sylvaneth each once per.
Yeah.
While I'm thinking about it with those guys, do you feel like in the pairings process, you getting matched up against those armies was a good matchup for you? Obviously, Lumineth was kind of you won one of the Lumineth ones, so that's good. We've already talked about that. How do you feel like? Do you feel like that's what you expected going into pairings? That you'd be paired with that much Fire Slayers, that much Lumineth?
Yeah, so I actually asked for Fire Slayers. I didn't mind that one. So I was pretty happy to get Fire Slayers, mostly because with Scraggy being able to snipe off their heroes like one at a time. And then also before the Battle Scroll, the Squigs being able to just launch mortal wounds into them. So getting off their buff piece heroes was huge, I think. So I didn't mind that. And then fighting on death, we kind of canceled each other out on fight on death. So it was fine. And then bringing my models back was a big one. So I enjoyed those. Lumineth was what I thought was going to be really, really a shit pairing for me. It wasn't great. Like, it certainly hurt. I was able to pull it out with the German player. But then with the Welsh player, it went about as I expected. Like, I just couldn't do anything. And we talked about it before about like how that game went, but I think that's how it should usually go, is like that level of control, and it would come down to a dice roll. So, because he could have shut down 2 of my units, I send the rest at full send. He's not going to be able to weather that storm. So if I get a double turn, game over. If I don't get it, everything's locked down and they're dead. So, and that's exactly how the game went. And then, like, I couldn't unbind a fucking endless spell to save my life on a 5, and I had +1 to cast. Still couldn't do it for 2 turns. So that was running amok. So I think those were a bit dicier. I had the similar problem with the Sylvaneth. They would have been over with a double turn, didn't get it.
And what kind of Sylvaneth list was that actually?
It was Alariel and Sights.
Okay.
Yeah. So it really wasn't the worst. And the double turn would have really got me there. I think I had some shitty rolls and then, some misplays on my part, I think a little bit. Gits was not, I never really perfected Gits, which is one of the things that I'll probably kick myself for a while that I, didn't prepare enough. I think the only one that I really was unsure about was Khorne. I had not gotten a chance to really play against Khorne enough when the new book dropped. So I was kind of figuring it out. I think I had 1 or 2 games and I was figuring it out as I went. So that was, I would say that was the more like kind of confusing game for me of like, I don't really know what I need to be doing right now.
I feel like you actually have a pretty favorable matchup there because
I do, absolutely. But the problem was it was twists and turns.
Okay.
So I couldn't score. None of the objectives turned on, and I was clearing things out, but I just couldn't get any points. And then the other thing that kept throwing me off again was I wasn't too familiar. So it was, Blood Tide moving into my face and just slow it. I can't run, I can't charge, can't do anything. So he's doing it, tagging it. My Squigs couldn't get into combat enough, and it was just consistently slowing me down and keeping me off points.
Did your list need to charge to do what it needs to do? I mean, it needed to be in combat, but did it need to charge?
Yeah. I had Draws of More gave me the extra attacks.
If you charge.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Do you feel like, on a scale of like a 5 points scale or whatever, how well do you feel like your team ended up pairing you? And this isn't against anyone doing the pairings, but do you feel like, in retrospect, how much room did they have to grow on this relative to the meta?
For me, I think I was fine. I
Okay.
don't think I don't think I really got any reds, except for Lumineth. But again, I think based on my list, that wasn't as red as I had originally thought.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, so I think it was okay. And then based off how the German game went, it makes sense that they would have tried again. Like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, that worked fine. Let's do it again. So I think I got paired pretty well actually.
So what do you see as kind of like the big takeaways from Worlds? Is there anything else that you want to add to the story? And we can kind of meander a bit,
Yeah.
but while we're kind of just directing it, do you have anything that comes to mind?
Um. So I think the one thing that I really liked about it or wanted to just reiterate was just the atmosphere was super fun. I think I didn't get any of those guys' games. Everything was very by the book. People held you accountable if you forgot something. I'm sorry, that's the level we're playing at, but it wasn't harsh. It wasn't eye rolly or anything like that. So I really wanted to just like the gratitude to like all the teams and the skill level that everyone had there, I think was amazing. And it showed me what I didn't know. So I think that one is the big one for me of like, okay, now I know what I didn't know then. I know how to prepare and hopefully how to be successful, going next year, singles or teams. That's the intention, is like knowing how to actually prep for all this stuff.
Did you have a favorite opponent,
Uh,
personality wise?
Personality wise, yeah. So I had different favorite opponents. So my in terms of the game, I think my German opponent was my favorite. It was just a really intense. I've played against the Germans before in like other teams tournaments, and so I always enjoy seeing them again and going up against them. But it was a clean game. I think we both really were very clear on intent. It was fun. It was on stream, so that added to it. So it was just I felt really good walking away from that game. Win or lose, I still would have felt that way. It was a really really fun game.
I'm curious,
Um,
when you play the Germans, do you tell them that you are German?
No, and it's a trap because then they always go, "Oh yeah," and they just fire off in German. Then I have to go, "Yeah, but I don't." And then they go, "Oh," so then it becomes like I'm a halvesies, I'm a faker.
Yeah.
Um, but someone usually will do that for me. They'll lean over, like, He's not. He shouldn't even be on our team," and then starts that whole conversation for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I usually don't broadcast it.
That's funny.
Yeah. I had that happen to me once actually. It was Halloween in San Diego. Like I was dressed in like German garb, whatever, and then I went to a bar, and the bartender was German, and then he just started going off about like football over here and in German, and then I was like, oh, I don't actually speak German, and he was like, and he threw ice at me. I was like, what? So from that day forward, never again.
Wow.
Never will I pretend. Well, I will never appropriate.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. But anyways, yeah. So that was my favorite game for my opponent. I think in terms of hilarity was the other Lumineth player from the Welsh team. He felt my pain. He was like, I feel like it was just so, it was fun. Like we were laughing, and he could see just like my energy going because it was the last game of the day. So sick it gets, all that sort of thing. So I really appreciated that level of comedy and just fun. It was dry humor, that sort of shit. It was great.
So, yeah,
And
sorry.
yeah,
Keep going.
and last one, the sweetest player I think I've ever played in my life was my Finnish opponent. She was the nicest lady, I think. And beyond that, it was just like one of the nicest, kindest persons I think I've played against. It was just really, really nice, gentle sort of soul.
Wow. I'm gonna throw this out there. Maybe this is making it complicated, but nicer than Kai.
Ooh.
Kai is extremely friendly.
He is extremely friendly. But Kai could be a ball buster, and I'm looking at you now, Kai. I'm not going to compare and contrast, but yeah, we talked about who were my opponents. So from that, she was the sweetest. Right. Let's call it international opponent then, if we want to split hairs.
Okay,
yeah.
all right. Sorry to make it make it complicated.
Jesus, I got to work with that guy later.
Yeah, right. Okay. So you were talking about like how ready you were to put Gits on the shelf. OBR, let's say you do, like, you are no stranger to playing one army for a whole season. Like, you played FEC for basically a year and a half,
yes.
and almost exclusively.
Yeah.
I know you have more endurance for this, and Gits was not your chosen army. They're not your models, blah, blah, blah. But to be fair, OBR is also not your models right now. You do seem much more passionate about OBR. You're not doing it for the team; you're doing it for yourself. And you had been talking about OBR well before the book came out. Like
Yeah.
you had a glint in your eye, and the only reason you don't have the models is not that you're not willing to spend the money on it. It's because someone's got Tom Meches has the army for you, and he's letting you use it.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
But I imagine after a year of playing this, let's say you do play them like literally just like Feck style, like you did. That's all you play.
Yeah.
Are you going to want to put it on the shelf? Like, are you going to be as frustrated as you were with because you're still talking about coming back to Feck already, and I have this feeling you might actually switch back to Feck once the book comes out.
Once they fix the book. I think it'll be a different kind of wanting to put it on the shelf. So I wanted to put Feck on the shelf as well with the new GHB and when that season kind of ended because it just had been a long time. But it was a loving placement back on the shelf. It was like I'll see you again, brothers. I wasn't saying goodbye. Gitz was like, I hope I never fucking see you again. I did not. Yeah, it's just not me. And yeah, like you said, I've always wanted to play OBR and I never actually did, but the feedback was just don't do it. It's terrible right now. You can't do it, can't be done. All the stats was like it's just crap. And so I waited for that. And then when I was looking for my new army, I was hearing the feedback that OBR is back on the menu. I was like, okay, yeah. And I looked into it, I was like, oh shit. And so now I'm actually having a lot of fun playing the army, and so now we're kind of on that quest that I did with Feck of like just doing the tweaks, going through. I've got it to a pretty stable place as is. I mean, there's not a whole lot of options you can do at this point. So yeah, just trying that out and going with it, and then adjusting to battle scrolls as they come out or new books if you need them. So any sort of changes, playing by those. But yeah, you're very right. When the Feck book comes out, I'm definitely gonna dabble. See what we got there.
Yeah. Because I mean, there's gonna be someone who could pick up OBR and still do decently with it. Depending on how Feck works, you might be the default guy to go back to for Feck. If Feck becomes an auto take in a world setting, they might just throw OBR in someone else, and then you end up being the Feck guy. I mean, there was even talk about that with the old book, the current book, when you were playing Git. Like Jeffrey kept mentioning, "Hey, are you sure you don't want to play Feck?" That was kind of a thing.
Yeah.
How different do you think Worlds would have been had you played Feck?
I think it would have added an unnecessary confusion to pairings, or difficulty to pairings. So for Gits, I think it's pretty clear where they go and where they don't go. I think when I was trying to do pairings with Feck, it was always kind of a maybe. We'll see. There's some slam dunk armies, like pretty much anything destruction is a slam dunk for me, just based on bravery shots. But yeah, other armies, like when we think about like Fire Slayers, Fight on Death would have probably gotten us, would have been a little challenging. But again, anything that I could Mortal Wound off would be a big one, and then I have mobility over. But with a lot of the armies being demons, so Slanesh, KO, that would have been a whole bucket that I really wouldn't have been that effective against. And shooting was our kryptonite. So just popping off my heroes left and right would have been a challenge.
Yeah.
So I lose some dragons, I've got big problems.
Yeah. Okay. So you had mentioned that you wish you kind of had more time to refine your Gits playing. Can you kind of like explain that or flesh that out a bit? Flesh eater quartz that out a bit?
Yeah. Sure. So yeah, I knew their rules and I knew what to do on a surface level, but there's almost like an intimacy that I knew with Feck, that I knew them in and out of. Like I knew what they could take, what they couldn't take. I know how to like, oh, just hang in there, boys. Give me one more. Like I just knew how to push that and just be like, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. I have faith. And then so like I knew exactly what to do with them and how to like bait. I knew what I could afford to lose and when to lose it, all that sort of thing. So when people will be like, "Ooh, free dragon," I'm like, you knock yourself out, kid, because that's a trap. And like just setting things up like that perfectly, I couldn't do that with Gits. Because I think the hardest thing for me getting used to was the idea that my shit is supposed to die. Just flood it, kill, get it, do as much damage, it dies, and then hopefully it comes back. But then that hopefully was always not paying off. Like it was like 4-ups were just not as easy as it sounds. So then I'm like, oh shit. So then there was a hesitancy built in of like, I don't want to commit just yet. So I had never really perfected timing of how to get that stuff done. And then I think in terms of exposure to the other armies, I think when I played FEC, I had gone against every single army multiple times. I knew what they were going to do, and I knew what they wanted to do to me and how they were going to do it to me. And that's, I mentioned before, learning the how armies want to do things is I didn't know what that was for Gits. So that was a little bit of a challenge of like mastering that. So I could play them, but I didn't master them.
Okay. Yeah. Do you feel yourself getting there with OBR? I see it. I see you already doing what you did with FEC, and I think maybe it comes from also a place of where your heart's at. Jeffrey was saying this in the last interview we did, the debrief, where he really didn't want to stifle individual team members. Like he really liked that some people put their own spin on the lists and whatever, so that it wasn't just playing the meta list. Because he really feels like otherwise they're not going to have their whole heart in it. And to be fair, Marco, my captain on Team Serbia, said over and over again that I should, and a number of other plays, Nemanja as well, said I should have played KO. And the whole time I was the one insisting I should play Lumina, feeling like we needed Git's answer. And I don't know what the right answer would have been, because I would have taken the melee list. I don't know if that would how it would have done. I have no idea. But the point is, both of the leaders and numerous other people on the teams kind of echo this sentiment. Do you feel like if someone else had played Gits and you had played something more you were more passionate about, that Worlds could have been different?
No, I do think so. I don't think that the passion really would have played too much of a factor for me. It was the like I said, the master and the expertise. So I don't think that I had enough time or prep work to really master Git. So like for me, like when I first agreed to take it, I was like, I'll fill. I don't mind what army you want me to play. But getting it to the level where I could play FEC, and I just had more fun playing FEC, and I think that also comes with really knowing the ins and outs of them, because there was a period of time that I was actually really having a good time with Gits, and I'm like, oh, I think I get it, and it was like a bell-shaped curve. Then I was like, oh Jesus, and then it wasn't working out. So I think it would have came with more time. So say if I had to play them for an entire year, I could get used to that. I mean, I don't like the style, so I don't like horde armies. I don't like setting them up. It's not really my thing.
Yeah.
But I don't know that it would have really mattered in the end. If I still got the amount of games and experience, and I think I probably could have gotten the same results that I would with like FEC, where I just have a lot of fun playing them.
Sure. Okay. So Worlds in general, can you maybe like a quick fire, just like your top 3 to 5 things that you liked about Worlds?
Yes. Okay, so I loved the jerseys. I thought that was really cool. So I know they talked about it before, but this was my first Worlds experience. So really seeing all of the pride of the country. So representing. So everybody had their logos. Everybody looked great. That was a big one for me. We're from the States, so we love our patriotism, all that kind of stuff. So seeing everybody very proud of everything and wearing the colors was really cool. Surreal experience. I loved it. The dice trading, I thought that was super fun. So running around and collecting each country's dice, and I thought that was a super cool way to, connect with different countries and take a little back with you. And it's also like an exclusive, a memory that you get to swap with people. So I thought that was super fun. Let's see. So 5. So I'm at 2. Okay.
3 to 5, whatever you feel like.
3 to 5. Okay. The games, all that is tired. So those are great. That goes without saying. I think also the after hours was a lot of fun. So going to the pub after, connecting with people, just having a chat.
Let's talk about that a bit, like, because we did break down a little bit when talking to Jonas and Michael that we had that night where we hung out with the Saturday night when the ladies came in. But what else are you thinking of when you're talking about this? Because I don't remember us doing. I guess the last night we did a bit. We hung out with Owen Jackson a little bit.
We hung out with Owen randomly. I hang out with Carl from Tough Crowd, or the Canadian team. So we chatted with them. That was a cool thing. And it was just like everybody was so ready to unwind and just have a drink. So it was like a really strong energy in the bar. I sat with Natasha. I sat with some of the guys from also the Canadian team, and then we just chatted, bullshitted a lot, had a lot of fun laughs. So it was nice. That was one of the fun things that you don't really get, like, to introduce new people to your scene. Like, I go to that hotel all the time for the events here, and so to have new people, new faces, for them to experience the fun of that location, it was great.
Did you do anything Thursday, Friday? So Thursday's the night before, and then Friday is, of course, the night of the first night. I know what you did Saturday, Sunday. What did you do the other 2 nights?
The first night, I think I got a game in with Mitch.
All right.
So we had our check-in where Jeff tried to get us all sick, and then me and Mitch went and had a game. I think I went home.
No, you got a hotel the first night.
Did I?
Yeah, I stayed with you.
Oh yeah, shit. Okay, so I stayed there, and then yeah, so that's what I did the first night. Cause yeah, we were all gonna drink and get ready and have a good time.
Yeah, and then Friday night, I think Friday night was super. You went home, obviously. So yeah, I don't think we did much.
So Friday night I had dinner with Tom and Jeff. I think was that night, right?
No, that was when we were together. I mean, maybe you did on Friday as well, but that first night was when you went off to go play games. We had dinner with Tom and Jeff. And then I went and spent the rest of the night with the Honest Wargamer crew. That was that night. Anyway, whatever. Maybe you did it again.
I don't know.
The next
Maybe I went home. I don't remember what happened after that. So yeah, Friday, clearly uneventful Friday evening. And then yeah, so it was fun, like just walking around talking to all these people that you don't normally get to see on a face-to-face. So I talked with Rob a little bit and just like thanked him for everything he did.
Yeah.
And also Jordan from Season War just said thanks for contributing to the community. I think it's a huge plus to have. So yeah, that was one of the standout moments for me, is being able to have that opportunity.
Yeah, sure. Anything else you want to mention, or we can just close out too? Is there what would you like to close out on?
Excited for the next one, man.
Yeah.
Whether it be in the team environment or the singles environment, I'm really excited to have that experience again. That's something that I can absolutely see myself doing on a yearly basis. That it's too fun of a event to not partake in.
Is there any part of you that would do singles as well as teams?
I think I would do singles in an away version. So like if I'm traveling somewhere, I would really make it a thing, like unless it's somewhere I've never been, so maybe I want to explore a little bit, but I could see myself doing singles till I really get bang for my buck and play all those games.
Sure. Yeah. For those that aren't up to date on this, the Netherlands did get chosen as the location. In the last video where you were on, Nick, obviously it was before the decision had been made, but now the Netherlands has won for the second year in a row the bid. I don't know what all the reasoning for this was. Obviously, the States was kind of a no-go, I think, from the get-go for what I said there. It's just too impractical for too many of the countries, too great a percentage of the world's populace. But that could change, obviously, if the meta ends up changing for if it becomes less Eurocentric, then who knows, it could be somewhere else. And then I think, from what I understand, the Italy situation, I heard that there was just too much riding involved, too much transportation time to get to it from wherever. But maybe I heard that wrong. And then it was down to Spain. From my understanding, it was down to Spain and the Netherlands. I don't know what the deciding factor was there, but
I don't know either. I hear it was very close though.
Okay, but I mean, obviously, Tom and crew put on a great show this past year. The pricing is high, but it's not higher than it would be to go to a number of places, and it's just mainly a matter of convenience, I think. It's so easy to get to the event from the airport. It's literally just jump on a free shuttle and then you're there. So,
Yeah, and maybe the construction will be done this time, so that'll be nice.
Be nice, yeah. Anyway, all right, Nick. Well, we're also going to film right after this, a little behind the scenes. We're going to film a tournament review from the recent 2-day Threshold Invitational we did here. So keep an eye out for that, guys, at home. But Nick, thanks again for being on.
Anytime.
All right. Do you feel like you got the closure that you wanted for Worlds that we all wanted?
Yes. Now we can never talk about it again.
Worlds is done. I have to do another one after this, but we're almost done. All right. Okay. And there you have it, guys. As always, thank you for watching. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Keep the conversation going in the Discord and the comment section below. Really hope you enjoyed this table talk and getting to know Nick a little bit better. I know I did. And we'll get some more content out pretty soon, covering some tournament reports and other developing stories and analysis. So, in the meantime, guys, Ryan out.